What if the biggest Caitlin Clark versus Raven Johnson rivalry only exists in the minds of fans? Aliyah Boston just revealed what really happened behind the scenes, and her comments may surprise everyone.
So it looked like the first Indiana Fever to address Raven Johnson. Now, this should not come as a surprise because it's Aliyah Boston, man. So Aliyah Boston went on her podcast today to break the news to the world, how she feel about Raven Johnson being drafted to the team, how she thinks about Caitlin Clark being paired up with Raven Johnson, and pretty much the Indiana Fever front office.
Aliyah Boston is the first Indiana Fever player to speak publicly about the Raven Johnson situation. On her podcast with Candace Parker, she talked about what it will be like having Raven Johnson guard Caitlin Clark in practice after doing the same in college. She also joked about how strange it is to become teammates with someone who once scored 40 points against you in the Final Four. Boston also explained that fans often create drama that players don't. Her comments show why so many people may be overreacting to the Fever's draft pick.
I think that transition game is going to be pretty nice. You know, I'm happy to have my girl Raven. I think Raven is going to have a good W career. Like, I'm excited that she gets to start it at the Fever. So we'll see. I mean, I'm excited.
I can't wait to.
When Aliyah Boston says fans have more beef than the players and that everything changes once you're on the same team, it raises an interesting question. Are people overreacting to the Raven Johnson and Caitlin Clark situation? Or is Aliyah simply trying to keep the peace and avoid controversy? Either way, her comments suggest that players usually move on much faster than fans do once they are wearing the same jersey.
Chicago is Gabriela Jaquez. And then we just go straight up Bruins all
Kiki
day.
Rice to Toronto.
Kiki Rice to Toronto, which shocked me a little bit. We got Martin to Portland. And then we got Flage, which was drafted by Golden State, but we'll get to that in a second. Raven Johnson, your teammate, fellow Gamecock.
Let's talk about what Aliyah Boston said on her podcast, because this is the first time someone connected to the Indiana Fever has spoken publicly about the Raven Johnson situation. Aliyah is the perfect person to discuss it. She was teammates with Raven Johnson at South Carolina, and now she plays alongside Caitlin Clark in Indiana. That gives her a unique perspective on how the two can work together. On her podcast with Candace Parker, they reviewed the WNBA draft and discussed why the Minnesota Lynx had the number 2 overall pick, even though they were one of the league's best teams last season. The reason is that Minnesota acquired Chicago's first-round pick in a trade made 2 years earlier, when the Chicago Sky moved up in the draft to select Angel Reese. As a result, Chicago gave up 2 consecutive first-round picks in that deal. Looking back, some people now question that decision, especially after Olivia Miles was available for Minnesota to select with the 2nd overall pick.
I can't wait to hear about that first practice where it's going to be a little awkward. I mean, I know that Caitlin Clark and Raven have probably talked since then, but it's got to be a little, you know what I mean? Especially when you're a defensive player like her, like, you're going to come in, you're probably going to be playing against the first unit, to be honest with you. She's not probably going to start. And so you're going to be battling against her in practice. And the Fever, I think, have done a great job, obviously, of drafting. Some have fallen into their laps, and clearly you were the number 1 pick. Clearly Caitlin was the number 1 pick. But I do feel like there are ways to make your franchise better with the others.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Now with an expanded roster, like, you're able to draft.
But the most interesting moment came when they reached the number 10 pick and Raven Johnson's name was announced. Aliyah Boston immediately smiled and said, "Cocks up, baby. Let's go." A shout out to her South Carolina Gamecocks. She said she was happy for Raven, believes she'll have a successful WNBA career, and is excited that she'll begin it with the Indiana Fever. Everything she said was positive and supportive. There was no drama, which isn't surprising. Aliyah is known for being professional and wasn't about to criticize her new teammate. Then Candace Parker brought up something more interesting. She said she couldn't wait to hear about Raven's first practice because it might be a little awkward. Aliyah agreed. She admitted it could feel a bit strange, especially since Raven is a defensive specialist who will likely spend a lot of practice guarding the first unit. That means she'll probably be matched up against Caitlin Clark almost every day. That's the same Caitlin Clark whom Raven defended in the 2024 National Championship game, holding her to 5 for 20 shooting. That performance became one of the biggest talking points of Raven's college career. Candace also pointed out that the Fever have drafted well over the years, landing Aliyah Boston 1st overall, then Caitlin Clark first overall. Now, with a deeper roster, the team can also draft players who improve practices by challenging the starters, even if they aren't expected to start right away. Then Aliyah shared a personal story. She remembered what it was like becoming Caitlin Clark's teammate after Iowa knocked South Carolina out of the Final Four. She laughed and said she kept thinking, "I'm really about to be teammates with a player who dropped 40 points on us." Her point was simple: college rivalries don't last forever. Once players join the same team, the focus shifts from competing against each other to working together and trying to win. Aliyah joked, "You really didn't have to do that." She was talking about the time Caitlin Clark scored 40 points against South Carolina in the Final Four. South Carolina had the nation's top defense, but Caitlin still dominated the game, and Aliyah was on the losing side. Now they are teammates. Aliyah said it felt a little strange at first, and they even talked about that game after joining the Indiana Fever. It was something they wanted to clear up before moving forward. Then she shared the biggest takeaway from the podcast. She said, "The fans always have more beef than the players actually do." That was her main point. Players don't hold onto old rivalries the way fans often do. They are professionals who understand that once they are on the same team, the past is in the past. Aliyah said it's funny to read fans arguing online and criticizing different players, only to see those same players become teammates. Once everyone gets to the gym, the only thing that matters is working together and trying to win. Candace Parker agreed. She said wearing the same jersey changes everything. Once you're teammates, you're on the same side, and old rivalries no longer matter. That's how strong teams usually operate. And both Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark have competed at the highest levels. They know that college rivalries stay in college. Candace Parker joked that she likes to tease teammates in the group chat on the anniversary of big games or tough losses. That's just part of being on a team. Teammates joke with each other, but they don't hold grudges. Aliyah laughed and called Candace lame, but agreed that's how good teams work. You can laugh about the past without letting it affect the present. So what does this mean for the Raven Johnson situation? Aliyah's comments give a pretty clear answer. She believes Raven and Caitlin will probably acknowledge their college history, just like she and Caitlin did. Once they've talked about it, they'll move on. Now they are teammates, and that's what matters. The bigger issue seems to be the reaction from fans. Many people are still debating whether Raven can guard Caitlin, whether drafting Raven was disrespectful to Caitlin, or whether there will be tension in the locker room. Aliyah doesn't see it that way. She believes players handle these situations differently. They are professionals who understand that once they are wearing the same jersey, the team's success comes first. In many ways, her comment that fans have more beef than the players may be the clearest explanation yet of how the Fever expect this situation to play out. Aliyah's message was simple. The players aren't focused on old rivalries. They are focused on winning. Most of the drama is coming from fans, not from inside the team. She believes that once players become teammates, their goal is to help each other improve instead of worrying about what happened in college. Candace Parker also pointed out something important about Raven Johnson's potential role. As a defensive specialist, Raven could spend a lot of time guarding the Fever starters during practice. That could be especially valuable for Caitlin Clark. Going up against a strong defender every day would force Caitlin to work harder in practice, helping her prepare for the tough defensive pressure she'll face during real WNBA games. In that sense, Raven's defense isn't just useful for herself, it's a way to make the entire team better. The awkward first practice that Candace joked about would only become a problem if the players allowed it to. Based on Aliyah's comments, that doesn't seem likely. She expects everyone to acknowledge the past, move forward, and focus on improving together. Another interesting part of Aliyah's comments is what she didn't say. She never criticized Raven Johnson, questioned the Fever's draft choice, or suggested there would be chemistry problems. Instead, she spoke positively about Raven, said she was excited to have her on the team, and expressed confidence in her future. That suggests the players inside the Fever organization are approaching the draft pick with support and professionalism, even while fans continue to debate it. Aliyah Boston also avoided criticizing the Fever's roster or the front office. She didn't complain about the team's guard-heavy roster or question why Indiana drafted another guard when they already have players at that position. Instead, she praised the Fever's recent drafts and said she believes Raven Johnson will have a successful WNBA career. Everything she said was positive and supportive. That could mean Aliyah genuinely likes the pick, or it could simply reflect her professionalism. More likely, it's a mix of both. She isn't the type of player to publicly criticize her organization, and she also understands the value of adding a strong defender to the roster. even if the overall fit isn't perfect. One comment stood out in particular. Aliyah didn't just say Raven would have a good rookie season. She said Raven would have a good WNBA career. That's a meaningful endorsement. Aliyah spent years playing with Raven at South Carolina, so she knows her work ethic, her strengths, and how much she's grown as a player. Coming from someone who has already succeeded in the WNBA, that opinion carries weight. At the same time, Aliyah didn't answer the biggest basketball question surrounding the pick. The issue isn't whether Raven Johnson and Caitlin Clark can get along. Based on Aliyah's comments, that doesn't appear to be a concern. The bigger question is whether Raven's skill set fills a real need on a roster that already has several guards. Aliyah focused on Raven's defensive ability and said she was excited to have her on the team, but she didn't explain exactly how Raven will fit into the rotation or what her role will be beyond helping the team with a defense. That's understandable because those decisions aren't hers to make. It's up to head coach Stephanie White to determine how Raven fits into the lineup, how the minutes are distributed, and how to make the roster work over the course of the season. Whether Raven becomes a regular contributor or mainly provides value in practice is something that will likely be decided once training camp and the season begin. Based on Aliyah Boston's comments, the players trust the coaching staff and front office to have a plan. Aliyah's job is to welcome Raven Johnson, help her adjust to the WNBA, and support her as a teammate. Caitlin Clark will likely do the same. Raven's job is to compete, defend at a high level, and earn her role on the team. The players are focused on basketball. Aliyah's point was that most of the drama is coming from outside the locker room. Fans are the ones analyzing every interaction between Raven and Caitlin, looking for tension that the players themselves don't seem to feel. That's why her comments stood out. The fans always have more beef than the players do. It sums up how she views the entire situation. She admitted there might be an awkward moment at first, just as she and Caitlin had to acknowledge their own Final Four history after becoming teammates. But once that conversation happened, they moved on. She expects Raven and Caitlin to do the same. Her overall message was clear. Once players wear the same jersey, they are working toward the same goal. Past college matchups don't matter nearly as much as fans often think. The real questions surrounding Raven's role, how many minutes she'll play, where she fits in the rotation, and how the coaching staff will use her, will be answered on the court over time. Those are basketball decisions, not personal ones. In the end, Aliyah's comments suggest the Fever players are approaching this situation with professionalism rather than emotion. While fans continue debating the draft pick and revisiting old college rivalries, the team appears focused on building chemistry and trying to win games together. If that's the approach inside the locker room, then the story may end up being much simpler than many people expect.